On the fly.
Yes. Saying good afternoon.
Already saying good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Advanced Live Stream. I'm Peter.
I'm David. So good to be here, Peter.
So good to have David back for a second consecutive week now. Last week we were talking about persuasion, and I persuaded David to come back for another week. Talk about something completely different today.
That's right.
Here in our monthly September advance, today's the last day of September, I know, but still, we have one final article here called Light and Dark. It's about the biggest, brightest object in the universe and the darkest. The brightest is called a quasar, the darkest is called a black hole. They always come together, it seems, some way, and we thought that this would be a good kind of springboard to talk about hobbies, because astronomy is a hobby. What is a hobby? It's something that you spend your leisure time on, but in a kind of very focused, kind of regular way, because you enjoy it so much. A hobby is not just getting together with your friends for a bite to eat. That's just leisure activity. It's great, but we wouldn't call that a hobby. A hobby is something that you pursue almost as seriously as a job, almost, but for pleasure. You don't get paid for it. And as you can see in our poll, there are 4 kinds of hobby categories that you guys can chime in on. Do you enjoy a hobby related to sports and games, history and science? You know, are you a history war buff of some kind, Civil War buff or World War II war buff? Do you enjoy a hobby related to arts and crafts, you know, making things? Or do you enjoy a hobby involving collecting, which is what a lot of people tend to think of when they think of hobbies, because it's such an obvious thing. You know, I used to collect coins myself when I was a younger man.
Oh, really?
I did, yes. Oh. I was an avid coin collector for several years. I still have most of my collection in storage back in the States, and it was great. I enjoyed it very much, and a lot of people will collect things these days. You have usually it's those little action figure dolls from popular movies like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or something like that. Anyway, 4 categories of hobbies that you can chime in on. And hello, Daisy. We've already got some of you chiming in the comments. Thanks for that.
Good to see you.
Kyle, hello to you. And this person...
Xiao Jia-shang, he likes to bulk up his arms. I
bulk up my arms.
Very good.
Way to go. That's a hobby. Anything that you do, you know, on a regular basis with focus, you know, because you enjoy it. You just enjoy it that much. And also B, I used to collect stamps. Cool. Stamp collectors, coin collectors. We have a lot of common ground. That's a phrase from last week. Maybe you remember it.
Yeah.
But I particularly wanted David to join us again this week, because talking about quasars in the as the magazine article does, that is related to what is, for a lot of people, a hobby, and that's astronomy. One of our categories there, history and science, the hobby of astronomy. So David, just tell us a little bit about what quasars are.
Quasars are sort of a stage of star death. They're a type of
star death?
Yes. Yeah. So a black hole, which is something people are more familiar with, is what happens when a very, very large star dies. It collapses in on itself because of all the gravity, and it creates this crazy thing called a black hole. And a quasar is sort of a type of black hole, but the most impressive thing about them is their incredibly powerful magnetic field.
I didn't think of that, actually. I think of them as very bright, which they are, very powerful, but also very magnetic.
Yes.
You're saying if you get within 2 light years of a quasar and there's metal on you, you might be drawn right in.
It might even be more than that. And when they emit their energy, you can see it from hundreds of thousands of light years away.
Hundreds of thousands of light years away.
Yeah.
I used to almost be an astronomy hobbyist myself. Just when you think about astronomy, the size and the grandeur and the majesty and the mystery of it all. Joy, hello Joy. My hobby is listening to Advanced and keep doing every day since 1994.
Wow.
Joy, we got to make a badge for you or something.
Yeah, we need she needs a members-only jacket with
yes,
advanced
30-year club.
Yeah.
And Rose, hello Rose, I enjoy listening to classical music and playing the piano.
That's wonderful.
Me too. I studied the piano a little bit when I was young.
Really?
I gave it up to play baseball. It didn't really work out, but I still enjoy listening to classical music. Good to hear, Rose. And this gentle person.
Our friend here is binge watching is another hobby. Yes.
Yes.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
You can actually bulk up your arms while you're binge watching.
2 for 1.
You know what I mean?
There you go. Yeah. Hey, Steve Son, good to hear from you. I really enjoy hobby on collecting because me and my friends, Hot Wheels cars. Yes. When I was a kid, they were called, in the States, they were called Matchbox. I think we had Hot Wheels also, but I collected Matchbox. Same thing, these neat little cars. At the Facebook group, we shared pictures together, but not only cars, also action figures, right? Such as Marvel and TMNT, which I learned last week is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's right. Yes.
And Rose, again. Oh, maybe you'd like to read this one.
Oh, you missed me on today's astronomy program. Well, I missed you too.
What astronomy program was this?
I'm not sure, but I know we have those periodically in radio programs.
I see. Okay.
Been missing on that one.
Well, yeah, if there's ever an astronomy program, odds are he'll be there, but maybe not always. Anyway, let's give you guys some vocabulary. That's why we're here, help you practice your English. Vocabulary kind of related to hobbies.
That's right.
And a lot of hobbies get started because of a whim. W-H-I-M, that's our vocab word, a whim. David, what is a whim?
A whim is sort of a kind of a desire to do something that kind of comes from out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're walking down the street and just on a whim, you decide that you want to get some ice cream. Maybe you weren't thinking about ice cream before, it just sort of popped in your head, and so you just did it on a whim.
And that perhaps led you to become a hobbyist in ice cream. You liked it so much that you decided to try different flavors, different stores. I think this is what we were talking about last week.
I think ice cream came up last week.
It came up last week as an example. That's right, as an example of vivid language. We're talking about persuasion last week. You want to use vivid language, and our brother here had all these vivid examples of ice cream and how he was going to persuade you to buy ice cream. It was great. But yeah, it can all start from a whim. Just a random impulse, not necessarily something that you like. You just, that bird's kind of interesting over there. And so on a whim, I drew a little closer and I ended up watching it for 20 minutes. I was fascinated by it just because of a whim.
On a whim.
So a whim can often then lead you to become, another vocabulary word, an enthusiast. An enthusiast.
And we've got a good use of the word whim here. This is a good sentence, actually. You could say that maybe you and your friends were out for pizza one day and you decided, hey, we should go down to Kunting. So you booked a B&B in Kunting on a whim. Yeah, just on a whim. There was no plan. You woke up that morning, you didn't think you were going down to Kunting, and all of a sudden you are. It was a whim. It was a whim. It was just a whim. It's a good sentence. Yeah. Anyway, enthusiast. David, what is an enthusiast? An enthusiast is someone who is very enthusiastic about something. They're excited about it. They're passionate about it. Right. They're full of enthusiasm for it, and that's usually the case with people's hobbies. They have a hobby about something that they are very enthusiastic about. That's right. And sometimes it can even become more than a hobby. It can become an avocation. Kind of a long word here, but easy once you see that letter at the beginning. Avocation. Avocation. David, what is an avocation? So a vocation is something that's like a job, something that you do and you get paid for. Right, not a vacation. Yeah. This is actually the opposite of a vacation. This is a vocation. And an avocation, in English, sometimes when you put that A in front of something, it kind of makes it the opposite. Right. So an avocation is something that you do as faithfully, perhaps, as you would a job, but you don't get paid for it. But it's not a job. Yeah, you don't get paid for it. And yeah, that little A, you'll see it in other words like typical. If something is not typical, it's atypical. Atypical. There you go. So Kylie, she is enthusiastic about jogging. She is a jogging enthusiast because it makes her feel very comfortable. And yes, this is the word fanatic. It is a little bit, I think that Fanatic is like a step beyond enthusiast.
Yes. A fanatic might even be a step beyond avocation. Fanatic might be someone who is almost obsessed with this thing. And so you want to be a little careful when you get to the fanatic level of something, because then you might be ignoring other things that you don't want to ignore. And Joy. Hello, Joy.
Hello, Joy.
Message for you, David.
Oh, why didn't they bring you to space this month? I think I was out of town, so I could not be on that space article. That's the only reason why, or else I would have been there for sure.
Steve, again, hi, Steve. I sometimes enjoy hobby outside, such as drawing comic books outdoors.
Cool.
That's neat. Will give me inspiration on what's the next chapter and which characters I should add in my world of my imagination. Yeah, by all means, go outside sometime to do an ordinary task. And Brian, hello, Brian. I enjoy playing the Legend of Zelda game series so much. It amazes me even more that players can play as Zelda in the latest game, Echoes of Wisdom. Yes.
That's cool.
Gaming can certainly be a hobby. A hobby is anything not just that you enjoy doing, but that you become kind of an expert in because you do it so much and because it just holds your attention so much. And in fact, the opposite of that, the idea of becoming an expert in something, leads us to another vocab word, armchair. Armchair. Now, you probably know armchair as, sort of an elegant chair with little rests for your arms and maybe high panels back here that they call wings, and it looks very like it's in a private club of some sort, and there's a rich-looking guy with a cigar smoking, and he's sitting in this nice armchair. But armchair also has an adjective form, and what does that mean, David?
Yeah, if you're armchair something, it means that you're not really actively involved in it. For example, sometimes people talk about being an armchair traveler. They don't actually buy plane tickets to go anywhere, but maybe they watch travel shows or they read lots of books about places.
Right.
Oh, yes, exactly. Just like that example I just gave. Yes, like an armchair traveler. Very good.
Yes. And there are a lot of armchair sports coaches for their teams. The next day when their team has lost, your friends at the office might say, oh, what they should have done was this. They should have put this guy in. They should have took that guy out or whatnot. And, they are, your friends are lawyers and office workers and whoever they are, but they're probably not actually athletic coaches, but they are armchair athletic coaches.
That's Steve here. Did you watch Apollo 13? It's one of my favorite movies. With Tom Hanks and Kevin Bacon. I did see that movie.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant film.
That's one of my favorites too, Apollo 13. That's top 20 for me, really.
Watching movies is a great hobby. We also have Janet. She's a Zumba enthusiast.
That's like aerobics. It's a kind of dancing, and it keeps you healthy. Zumba. I've heard of that, but I don't know too much about it.
Yeah, way to go, Janet. That's a really cool hobby to have.
Oh, and Brian is an armchair foodie.
I don't really know how that works, but I guess maybe there are all those videos on Instagram of like Korean people just eating food and then recording themselves. I guess that kind of counts. Yeah. My
wife often likes to watch videos of people just cooking, of people preparing, and obviously she's not alone. These people get thousands and thousands, millions of views even. Yeah. So that could be what is meant by an armchair foodie. Now, here's something you want to be careful of, though, in a hobby, in something that you're passionate about, maybe even fanatical about. You want to be careful that it doesn't turn into a vice. V-I-C-E, 4 letters, but vice. David, what does vice mean? A vice, it is what it sounds like. If you have a vice, it's like there's something that's holding on to you. Yeah. There are other things in your life that you should be doing, other things you should be paying attention to, like your family or your job. But there's this thing that is a vice that just sucks up all your time and your energy and maybe even your resources. Oftentimes we talk about things like gambling as a vice. Right? Yeah. It's a weakness at that point when you're giving it so much attention and it's giving you so little back. Right. It becomes a weakness. It becomes a vice, something that you want to gradually learn to avoid if possible. That's right. Joy. I take armchair travel with advanced teachers once a month, and we're glad to have you along for the ride, Joy. Yes, we always have great
travel articles in advance.
We do.
We'll keep that up. We'll keep that up, Joy, so we can take you all kinds of interesting places.
Yes, armchair travelers are welcome at Advance.
That's right.
Okay, we're running low on time as usual, but let's close with giving you 3 examples of hobbies, and there are like hundreds of hobbies, but we're going to give you 3 because each of them, the word used to describe them can also be used in other areas, not just in that hobby. So the first one here is the hobby of tinkering.
Tinkering.
Tinkering. Tinkering.
Tinkering.
Tinkering is those kind of people who like to take apart a radio just to see how it works. They like to tinker with it. What happens, or with a car. Some guys, they're not necessarily mechanics, but they like to tinker with a car, and they probably have some mechanical background if they enjoy doing that. It doesn't mean going up to something you have no idea how it works and breaking it apart in some way.
Right.
But yeah, tinkering means you like to just look closely at the details of something, take it apart, see how it forms back together, and that can be a hobby. There's all kinds of electronic things that you can tinker with. Would you add anything to that?
No, that's a really great description of it. I am quite a tinkerer myself. I really love taking things apart ever since I was a kid. So,
what's something you've recently taken apart?
I switched out some parts on a computer.
There you go.
Yeah. I like trying to fix things that are broken.
Rose, yes. Can I say he is a car tinkerer? Yes. Sure. There are all kinds of types of tinkerers. And again, it's someone who just is not necessarily just trying to fix something that's broken. It's more just wanting to understand how it works and just being fascinated with the way machines work and the way structures work. Okay, it's tinkering. Here's a second one now. But we have a comment from Steve. These days, I'm trying to learn how to turn my hobbies into a job that I like to do.
Great idea.
Hobbies can become jobs. There's no law. There's no law.
Ideally, they do.
Right, yeah. An avocation can become a vocation. Right. Like, for example, embroidery.
Indeed.
Another vocab word for us. Embroidery.
Embroidery.
A little bit long, but David, what does embroidery mean?
Embroidery is sort of like when you take thread or different materials and you take something like, for example, a pillow that is functional, but then you add certain things to make it look beautiful or make it look more interesting. Adding some lace or adding some letters that are created with thread on the, it's like maybe someone's name or something like that. And there are different styles of embroidery in every culture. It's very interesting.
Right, and you'll also hear that word used outside of the hobby of embroidery. People will say sometimes that, the way he described that event, what happened, he kind of embroidered it a little bit, meaning he added some not absolutely essential details to it, just to make it more exciting or just to, because he had a whim to do so. But yeah, when someone has embroidered something, it means there's some details added on that might not actually be true. Oh, David.
Joy, you know a lot about me because I think I've talked about this multiple times. So you've definitely been an advanced listener for a long time. I do like tinkering with typewriters. I've had several typewriters in my life, some that I've just cleaned, some that I've totally taken apart and tried to put back together. It's a very, very fun thing. Yes.
Yeah, total hobby right there. Yeah. Total hobby. Yeah. Okay, that's just about it, but we got one more for you, and that hobby is brewing.
Brewing.
Brewing, brewing. And this is, as you might guess, making your own beer.
That's right.
Or other alcoholic beverage, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also brew tea, actually.
That's right.
As a verb. But when we talk about brewing as a hobby, usually we're talking about beer.
Right. There are all kinds of varieties of beer that you can make, that you can brew on your own. So yeah, good point. When we're talking about, anyone can just go and brew a cup of tea. That's not a hobby. Brewing as a hobby means that you take time to research and, smell the grain and smell the hops that they make it in and really immerse yourself in the process of making beer or tea or some other liquid. So that brewing is not just, and make a cup of tea like that.
And Shao, yes. Actually, when you're talking about brewing tea, yes, steep and brew can kind of have the same meaning a lot of times. If you're steeping a cup of tea or brewing a cup of tea.
Right.
And Steve, thanks for the recommendation. It sounds like watching movies is one of your hobbies. It's one of mine too, so maybe I will check out that movie.
Yes, Twisters, I've heard of that. I saw the original too, very good. And so just finally, brewing can also mean something is coming together, something is happening, usually not in a good way. Like there's an expression in English, oh, down the street there's trouble brewing. I wouldn't go down there. Something's going on there, trouble is brewing. So that's completely different from the hobby meaning. Anyway, as you can see, we could go on, as always, for another half hour easily, but we want to bring it to a close for now. Want to thank you guys for joining us again, for all your comments about hobbies. It looks like most of you, your hobbies are sports or games. 2/3 of you say sports or games. A few say arts and crafts. A few say collecting, and just maybe 1 or 2 of you history and science. So anyway, it's all good. We love learning about you guys as you help to learn your English, as we help learn how we can help you learn your English and practice it. And we will be back next Monday with a new topic for you all to discuss and interact with us on. So until then, have yourselves a great week and enjoy your hobbies.
See you later.
So anyway, this coin